Imagine you are standing in the nosebleed section of a massive stadium watching the biggest game of the year, and suddenly the announcer screams that they are going to airdrop $10 million in new currency into the crowd. You look up with excitement coursing through your veins, and you are ready to catch a life-changing stack of cash. But then you realize the physics of the situation are working against you, because the blimp is hovering directly over the luxury boxes. The billionaires and the corporate tycoons in those suites just open their windows and rake in the cash before it even drifts down to the lower bowl. They are ecstatic, and they immediately go straight to the luxury shops inside the stadium and buy every available item at the old price. In that moment, they just got incredibly rich. They used that new money to buy real, tangible goods and assets before the rest of the stadium had any idea what was happening. But what about you? You are standing way up in the nosebleed seats. By the time the wind carries those crumpled bills down to your section, the shop owners have realized they have a massive problem. They have sold out of everything, and to restock, they have to pay much more for new supplies. They raise the prices drastically to deal with the sudden rush of demand caused by the people in the luxury boxes. By the time you finally catch your first $100 bill, that hot dog you used to buy for $5 now costs $15. You did not get richer at all. You just got diluted. The people in the luxury boxes got the goods at a steep and unearned discount, while you, the honest laborer, paid a hidden tax. This is the exact mechanical reality of our modern economy in the year 2026. It explains why your grocery bill has doubled and why houses have become almost completely unaffordable for the average family. It explains why the wealthy seem to be playing a completely different video game than the rest of us. This phenomenon is called the Cantillon effect, and understanding it is the only way to stop being the person stuck in the nosebleed seats. We spend so much of our lives staring at charts and bank accounts trying to figure out why working hard does not feel like it pays off anymore. If you are someone who feels like you are running on a treadmill where the speed keeps increasing, but your paycheck stays exactly the same, you need to pay close attention. We are about to expose the invisible engine of inequality that has been quietly draining your retirement savings. Most people do not realize that money is not neutral. We tend to think that if the government prints $1 trillion, then everyone's bank account goes up by a tiny percentage and prices adjust instantly. But that is a complete fairy tale. Back in the 1800s, a French-Irish banker named Richard Cantillon realized that money is like water. It flows from a source, and where it hits first matters much more than how much there is in total. He noticed that the people closest to the king, such as the bankers and the merchants, got rich when new gold entered the economy. Meanwhile, the farmers and the laborers got crushed by rising prices before they ever saw a single new coin. That insight is more relevant today in 2026 than it ever has been before. The king is now the Federal Reserve, and the new gold is now digital credit. When the central bank decides to inject money into the system, they do not mail a check to your house. They create trillions of dollars digitally and use it to buy bonds from massive commercial banks and financial institutions. This means the new money enters the system at the very top of the pyramid. The early receivers, such as the banks and the large asset managers, get to play in a market where the money supply has increased, but prices have not yet adjusted. Imagine a period where $1 trillion of new credit is pumped into the banking system. A large investment firm gets access to this fresh capital at near zero interest rates. Because they are the first to touch this new money, they can use it to buy up thousands of single-family homes and massive tracts of land. They are acquiring these assets at yesterday's prices using tomorrow's inflated money. This creates what we call asset inflation, and it is the primary reason why the gap between the rich and the poor has widened into a canyon. If you are a wealthy individual with a portfolio of stocks and real estate, the Cantillon effect is your best friend. The new money pumps up the value of the things you already own. But if you are a wage earner or a retiree who trades time for money, you are the victim of the lag. As that money moves from the banks to the corporations and eventually down to wages, it leaves a trail of inflation in its wake. By the time that money trickles down to your employer to give you a small cost of living raise, the housing market has already exploded.
The stock market is at an all-time high because of aggressive buybacks fueled by cheap debt.
You are receiving the money last, which means you are receiving it at its lowest possible purchasing power. It is a game of musical chairs where the music stops and the working class realizes the chairs were sold to a hedge fund 10 minutes ago. The psychological toll of this is immense because it gaslights you into thinking you are not working hard enough. You look at your savings account and it might be technically growing, but you feel poorer every single day. The goalposts for a middle-class life, such as a comfortable house and a decent car, are moving away from you faster than you can run. This constant erosion of purchasing power is why the Cantillon effect is best understood as a hidden inflation tax levied on the middle class. Because retirees spend a much higher percentage of their income on necessities like gas and food, they are disproportionately harmed. The wealthy who spend less of their capital on day-to-day necessities and more on assets feel these price increases far less. You might be thinking that the system is rigged and you should just give up, but that is the wrong conclusion. The point of understanding this effect is to hand you the blueprint so you can stop playing a losing game. You cannot stop the waterfall of money, but you can change where you stand to catch it. The biggest mistake people make is trying to save their way to wealth in a currency that is being constantly diluted. If you keep your wealth primarily in cash, you are standing at the bottom of the waterfall, letting the inflation wash over you and erode your hard work. To win in 2026, you have to behave like the wealthy. You need to become an owner and not just an earner. You must move your capital into scarce assets that float on top of the tidal wave of printed money. This is why the wealthy love real estate and broad market index funds. These are assets that cannot be printed at the push of a button. When the money supply expands, the value of these assets rises to reflect the new reality. By owning them, you are hedging yourself against the dilution of your wages and your savings. Furthermore, you need to understand the power of fixed rate debt in an inflationary environment. When you borrow money at a fixed interest rate to buy an appreciating asset, you are essentially betting against the dollar. You are paying back the bank with future dollars that are worth much less than the dollars you borrowed today. The system is designed to punish savers and reward asset-owning debtors. It feels wrong, and it feels unfair, but it is the reality we live in. Do not let your labor be stolen by the delay in the flow of money. Educate yourself and move your seat out of the nosebleeds and down toward the field. As we look at the data for 2026, the average person reaches retirement with far less than they need. The median retirement savings for households headed by someone around age 62 is only about $200,000. That might sound like a lot of money until you realize that at a safe 4% withdrawal rate, it only generates $8,000 a year. That is about $666 per month. Even with Social Security providing an average of $2,000 per month, many couples are struggling to cover the basics. The bar to be above average is actually quite low. If you can save just a little bit more or start just a few years earlier, you can far surpass these numbers. But the real secret is not just how much you save, but what you do with it. If you take that same $200,000 and leave it in the market, it could double in just 7 years. Time and compounding are the only tools that can outrun the Cantillon effect. Many people hit their 50s and suddenly realize they are behind. They start investing whatever they can, but they often make the mistake of being too conservative with cash. In an era of high inflation, cash is not a safe haven. It is a melting ice cube. You have to be willing to own pieces of the economy if you want to benefit when the money printer turns on. Think about the people in the luxury boxes again. They are not smarter than you, and they are not working harder than you. They are simply positioned better. They are early receivers of the capital. While you are waiting for your Social Security check to adjust for last year's inflation, they are already buying the assets that will cause next year's inflation. You need to shift your mindset. Stop looking at the price of things in dollars and start looking at them in terms of how many hours of your life they cost. When the currency is diluted, the price in hours goes up for everyone except the owners. Become an owner of land or an owner of businesses through the stock market.
This is the only way to protect the value of your past labor. Your retirement should be a time of peace and security, not a time of stress and constant budgeting. By moving your wealth into hard assets, you are building a wall around your future. The hidden inflation tax only works if you stay in cash. Once you move into assets, the tax becomes a subsidy that increases your net worth. It is a total transformation of your financial life. We are living through a massive transition in the global economy, and the old rules no longer apply. Saving 10% of your income and putting it in a bank account is a recipe for poverty in 2026. You have to be more aggressive and more strategic. Look for high-demand fields and acquire rare skills that allow you to raise your prices immediately. Your labor is a commodity, so do not let its value get diluted by a fixed wage. Position yourself as an early receiver of value. You now have the knowledge that most people will never understand. You can choose to remain in the nosebleed seats and watch your purchasing power blow away in the wind. Or you can buy your way onto the field and start playing the game to win. The choice is yours, but the clock is ticking. Every day you wait is another day the silent thief takes a piece of your hard-earned life. Take action today to secure your tomorrow. This content is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial or medical advice. Always consult with a professional before making significant changes to your investment strategy or health regimen. The world is changing fast, but with the right strategy, you can thrive in any environment. Thank you for listening and stay focused on building the future you deserve.